So for intangible assets class acquired in a business combination, the acquiree class owns intangible assets. Okay, but there is an issue as to identifiability. How would we know that there are intangible assets when in the first place we cannot see it class? So there is an issue also as to the recognition of intangible assets that are owned by the acquiring. Okay, but of course, if it meets the recognition criteria class, if it's identifiable, then it would be recognized. So basically, the next three paragraphs would tell us as to the rules as to what we will do. This gives us a presumption class that if it is separable class or arises from contractual or other legal rights, then there is sufficient information to establish the fair value of the asset, and therefore the intangible asset can be recognized. Okay, if the requirement of identifiability is satisfied class, then it can be recognized. Okay, paragraph 36, very important rule. This could easily be asked as a multiple choice question. Uh, in case an intangible asset class might be separable but only together with a related contract or other asset class, then the acquirer will recognize intangible asset separately from goodwill, meaning it will be given a separate account class, but it would be recognized together with the related item. Okay, so normally if it's identifiable on its own, recognized separately on its own. If it's not identifiable class, but you believe that there is economic benefit from it, then it will just be lumped together with your goodwill. Okay, no separate recognition. You just dump it as part of your goodwill. However, if it is separately identifiable class, but it is connected with some other contract or asset or liability, then not it will be separated from goodwill but recognized together with its related item. Okay, but you need not worry about this one class. This is already too detailed for our subject. As to the rules on subsequent expenditures class, the rule is similar also to PAS 16. Supposedly, costs incurred subsequent to the time that the asset has reached its intended use, location, and condition will already be expensed. Although there are exemptions when the cost will increase the capacity of the asset, will improve the efficiency or increase the life of the asset class, then it can be capitalized. The same is true for your intangible assets class. Mostly subsequent expenditures will be expensed. The rule on exchange of assets is similar also to PAS 16. Okay, and as I've mentioned already before, class, goodwill shall only arise from goodwill shall only arise from business combination. Internally generated goodwill will never be recognized as an asset. Okay. Now, for other kinds of intangible assets class, it's possible that they can be recognized. Okay. So this is one common source of errors for students class. They remember the rule that internally generated goodwill cannot be recognized as an asset, and they would jump to the wrong conclusion that entities are simply precluded from recognizing internally generated intangible assets. It's possible for you to recognize internally generated intangible assets provided you comply with the requirements laid out in the standard. Okay. For goodwill, no exemption. You should not be able to recognize internally generated goodwill. Okay. So remember class, internally generated goodwill cannot be recognized as an asset. Other But it's possible for other intangible assets to be for other internally generated intangible assets to be recognized. These are the issues: identifying whether there is an identifiable asset that will provide future economic benefits, and the determination of the cost of the asset. Okay. I've already discussed as to the treatment for research and development cost class, and I will just share to you the discussion later on. Now here, paragraph 63 class, similar to goodwill class, are not allowed to be recognized as intangible asset class. Okay, internally generated brands, mastheads, publishing titles, customer lists, and other items similar in substance shall not be recognized as intangible asset. Mainly those that are related to your relationship with your customers class. If it's internally generated, then it will not be recognized as an asset. Okay. This one, together with the rule on intangible assets class, will lead students to the wrong conclusion that all internally generated intangible assets are not allowed. Okay, that's wrong. Okay, but again, goodwill, brands, mastheads, and those items enumerated in paragraph 63, if internally generated class, are not allowed to be recognized as an intangible asset. But if it is acquired from a third party class, okay, if you obtain customer lists, mastheads, or brands from a third party or another entity, then that can be recognized as an intangible asset. What paragraph 63 prohibits class is the recognition of an internally generated asset of this kind class. Okay. So again, two common errors on the part of the students. They would think that it's not possible to recognize an internally generated intangible assets. Why does that happen? Because of the various kinds of intangible assets that are prohibited by the standard from being recognized if it is internally generated. Okay, so please remember it is still possible for you to recognize an internally generated uh, intangible asset. Second, because of paragraph 63 class, some students would think that entities are absolutely prohibited from recognizing brands, mastheads, publishing titles, so on and so forth. What is prohibited in paragraph 63 are only those that are internally generated. Okay, so please take note of those two things that are commonly sources that are a common source of errors on the part of the students. Let's just stop here, first class. Do you have any question at this point, class?
Sir, can you give an example, sir, of an internally generated intangible asset, sir?
Uh,
Like a definite example po.
Inventions which you will apply for patent. So if you have a research team, if you have a team of inventors, or simplest would be for pharmaceutical companies if they develop a new drug. Okay, so that would most definitely be internally generated by their own research and development team, and the rights over the exclusivity over that formula or over that drug will belong to them, and it is internally generated. Okay, uh, for example, for Tesla class, any other invention they may have, they will apply for patent, and that is internally generated. And they are allowed to recognize the patent over their inventions as their intangible asset. Anything else? So basically, class internally generated in relation to customer services class, not recognized as an asset. Okay, because really it's just difficult to determine the economic benefits from it because entities are expected to spend for good customer service and customer relations.